Living in harmony is possible if you know your emotions and how to handle them. In this podcast, Dr. Carmen Roman will share with you in an engaging way the current psychology by sharing herself or interviewing experts who will inspire you. Learn how to live a life of fullness and how to recover your emotional harmony with Dr. Roman. Welcome to Emotions in Harmony.
Hello again, this is Dr. Roman, your host, and I am very happy today to share with you the interview with Dr. Fabrice Nye. He is an expert in the Silicon Valley area. He does a very interesting mix of transpersonal psychology, spirituality, and cognitive behavioral therapy. You can listen from him in his own podcast, which I will link in the show notes. You can find the link there. But for now, I will say no more and leave you with this interview that was relaxing and fun for me. Enjoy it. Hello, everybody. We are here with Dr. Fabrice Nye, and it's wonderful to be in conversation with him. This is the first interview that you are going to listen in this podcast. I'm so happy that it's Dr. Nye because we went to the same school. We did a PhD in the same wonderful school in the transpersonal psychology. And now Dr. Nye has been focusing lately in the cognitive behavioral therapy. Is that true, Dr. Nye?
Yes, I've been using cognitive and behavioral therapy as my primary modality in my work with my clients. One motto that I like to use, which comes from my mentor, is that I use tools rather than schools of therapy. So whatever works.
Whatever works, that's true. Yeah. Whatever works when we work with clients. Tell us a little bit about yourself so the listeners can get to know you a little better.
As you said earlier, we went to the same school, which was a holistic transpersonal school, which looks at maybe a bigger picture than most traditional schools of psychotherapy. And I've always kept that underlying background when I work with people, when I do psychotherapeutic interactions, where I don't simply approach my clients as a collection of ailments and problems, but I see them as a whole human being, as a spiritual human being. My own personal background, that psychotherapy and psychology is like a second career for me. I used to be a computer engineer. I was an IT consultant for a number of years. And one day I decided that working with computer systems was no longer for me, and I wanted to work with people. So I sort of went from, I jumped over from my left brain to my right brain. And I've tried to marry the two since. It's been quite a ride for me.
It must be something between psychology and engineering, because in Mexico, in Guadalajara, in the Department of Psychology, it was so many women dating engineers from the Department of Engineering.
Yes. Well,
it must be something in between.
I wouldn't be surprised that there's a connection that we haven't quite detected. I've felt quite blessed to have had both experiences. And it kind of helps me since I work in the Silicon Valley, because I see a lot of IT, people, engineers. And so I can speak the same language as they do. Which I think
that must be very refreshing for them.
I think so. One thing that I have really integrated into the way I work lately is what I would call the motivational approach. I have been studying for the past couple of years a model of therapy called TEAM, TEAM, and it stands for testing, empathy, agenda setting, and methods. The agenda setting part is not what people might think of, which is decide on some goals and work through a particular protocol. It's more about melting the resistance before it happens. And I found that to be quite helpful in my work with people.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. So melting the resistance before it happens.
Yes, this is something that was taught to me by Dr. David Burns, with whom, by the way, I also do a podcast.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah.
Dr. Nye has the Feeling Good podcast. You can find it in iTunes too.
Yes, I'll give you a link so you can put that in your show notes if you want.
Yes, we will put it for the people to go and check it out, because in the Santa Clara Psychological Associations he got mentioned because it's very good, the podcast. So,
thank you.
Do you have any motivational quote for us to start the topic on the interview?
Yes, so I know that your main thread is harmony and emotions. First, I want to say I'm happy that you're using the term emotions. I much prefer that to the word feeling, because the word feeling is kind of confusing. But emotion is something that happens to us at a very somatic level. It happens in the body. It's very grounded in the physicalness of us. In terms of emotions, we're trained to shy away from the uncomfortable ones and try to seek out the comfortable ones, the pleasant ones. Sometimes, the uncomfortable ones are so painful that we really want them to stop, but they're not necessarily a bad thing. So I wanted to put that as a first point. But really, on the whole, we feel the way we think. So how we see our lives and our experiences determines how we feel about them. So it determines what emotions come up in our experience. And if we feel too distressed or too hurt by our emotions, the thing to know is that we can change the way we feel by changing the way we think. So that's what I would like to say as my main point here.
I totally agree. We can sometimes change the way we feel by changing the way we think.
Yeah.
Most of the times, I will say.
Most of the time. I want to agree that there's some very raw source of emotion. But if we stay at the raw level, if we really remain embodied in it, there's nothing really bad about it. It's like a toothache. Toothache in and of itself is not bad. It's just a toothache is telling us something needs attention.
Take us to those moments where you find helpful with the work that you do in relation to healing emotions.
Yes. As a first approach, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I really hear the people who come to me with suffering and pain, because there won't be any healing until there's enough of a bond. That's where I sometimes wonder about people who say, in the future we'll have computer-assisted therapy, but you cannot bond with a computer. I really go for the empathy first. The other part of the healing process is sometimes I need to help my clients to come down to a level where they feel a certain level of self-control. I had somebody like that recently who was very high on the fight and flight range. He was like on edge the whole time. And without even going into, what's making you feel so anxious and so panicky, I just said, how about we spend a little bit of time breathing? There is a very well-known way of breathing which uses the diaphragm. It's called belly breathing, and I know you know about this. It helps people shift from the fight and flight mode, which is the sympathetic nervous system, the part of us that allows us to respond to threats, to shift from that to a place where we're more relaxed, we're more able to connect with our fellow human beings. This is our bonding system, our mammalian bonding system. So I often help people just kind of come down to, okay, let's be here, let's be in this room, let's be in the present.
And also, probably, I'm sure it's intentional for you, but my experience every time, Dr. Fabrice, that I am in front of you, around you, is that you use that breathing yourself You breathe relax, you move relax, so it feels inviting.
It's true. And of course that I don't tend to do this very consciously. I have like an automatic reaction when I'm in the presence of somebody who's really high on the anxiety level. Instead of matching them, I kind of go the other way. I bring myself to as stable a level as I can and kind of wait for them to join me at that same level.
Yeah.
If they can, or at least
if they can.
One feedback that I get often is people after they've spent an hour with me, they say, well, I feel calmer now. It just stepping into your session room, I suddenly feel better. I don't know why.
Yeah,
And,
I imagine that because that has been my experience every time I am around you. So this means maybe it's just your personality.
I would like to think so. I also have a pretty nice office, so I think that I've created an environment where people can just feel at ease.
And I haven't seen your office, but you say you have a nice view?
I do have a nice view.
Okay,
there's a view of sailboats outside my window.
Wow. You are the lucky to be near to a lake, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm on the bay.
On the bay. Wow. Dr. Nye, what is a common mistake that people do about their emotions, and what do you think they can do?
So if I had to pick one, I would say that one of the most common mistakes and one of the most damaging is to try to move away from them. We go into avoidance, which, by the way, makes perfect sense. I have complete compassion for people who say, no, this is too much, too overwhelming, too scary. I just can't stand it. Let me deny it, forget about it, sweep it under the rug, distract myself out of it, meditate myself out of it. I understand that. The trouble with that is that it perpetuates it. So the more you run away, the more it's going to run after you. And we can't stuff it. We can't forget it. At a very body-based level, even if you feel like, okay, I've dealt, quote unquote, with this emotion, it will often lodge itself in your body and will come out as ailments, physical stress, and so on.
I think we get sometimes expert in doing that mistake. Yeah. We get some experience and expertise on avoiding.
Oh yes, I'm an expert at that. That's why I feel like I can relate to my clients who do the same.
It's a natural thing, yeah. I consider myself an expert on that too. What advice you could give to somebody who is gaining that expertise in avoidance? Sometimes
I will lead people through a somatically based process, because depending on what type of emotion we're talking about, and I like to make a distinction between drugs, uppers and downers. You have the anxiety-provoking emotions, the fear, the worry, the shame, the frustration, and then there's the depressive type of emotion, the sadness, the blues, the loneliness, the abandonment, the hopelessness, and the despair. And they kind of require different approaches. The more anxiety-like emotions, which even though they're really painful, tend to give you some energy. It's like this nervous kind of energy. It sounds counterintuitive, but you want to increase them. Really face what it is that's making you worried or anxious. You want to go toward your worst case scenario mentally, and sometimes in real life, as long as you stay safe, of course. It's like a child who is calling for his mother because there's a monster under the bed. And the mother comes into the room and says, well, let's look. And you look under the bed, and okay, there's no monster. It's a little bit like this. You go and meet what seems to be your worst fear, and then you see there's no monster, or the monster has no teeth. That's one type. When it's more of a depressive type of emotion, something that tends to take you down and make you almost unable to do what you want to do, that's where the motivation comes into play. I really check with my clients and I ask them, in order for you to change the way you're experiencing yourself, you will have to no longer put the cart before the horse. And what I mean by that is we tend to say, oh, I'll get out of this funk when I feel good enough. I'll do it when I'm motivated. I'll do it when I have more energy. Except that it's not the energy or the motivation that leads you to the action. It's the action that leads you to the motivation. So I really ask, do you really want to take a step, no matter how hard it may seem to take this step? And we can make as small a step as you want, but it seems sometimes overwhelming to take any step.
It seems sometimes for depressed people, getting out of the bed is hard.
Yes. I sometimes will say, and which is the agenda setting part of the motivation I was talking about earlier, and I will say, you know, when I'm feeling blue, if I were as depressed as you were, I would want to stay in bed too. Let's find out, maybe there's some good reasons to stay in bed. Not only that, there may be some good reasons to keep those difficult emotions. What do they say about you that is really awesome and positive? That is typically stunning to the clients. What do you mean, awesome and positive? I'm depressed. And so I progress a little bit gently there, saying, well, what do you hope for your life? And, people say, I would like to have a good relationship with my spouse, or I would like to do well in my career. I would like to raise my kids well, things like this. And I would say, wow, you have some very solid values. And I can imagine that at the moment, those values are not really expressing themselves in your life. It totally makes sense that you would be feeling down. That's what this depression is saying about you. It's really an emanation of your deepest, highest values. That tends to be a surprise for people, because slowly they're beginning to see what they first saw as a negative symptom, more of a reflection of the fantastic human being that they are.
I always believe that our emotions are just the pointer for fixing a deeper problem.
Yeah.
I don't see the emotions as bad or good, just emotions. But what in this culture is considered bad, sometimes in my culture, like in Mexico, we just have fun with it. Like if somebody is depressed, we take them to somewhere, we stay with them, we go and cry with them, we offer them tequila.
Yeah.
It's like there is much less need to run from them. Something in the Silicon Valley, I don't know if it's in general in the United States, but in the Silicon Valley, something about running from them.
Yeah, I think it's a wider thing than the Silicon Valley. It's probably culture-wide, at least in the Western culture.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Western, I'm lumping the United States with
it's
other
a natural
countries,
state for human beings, to run away.
Well, it is. I think that it comes in part from education, because going back to our evolutionary mechanisms, if I feel afraid and I'm in the savannas of Africa, I'm going to start running or start yelling or start doing something. Why? Because most likely I'm afraid because there's a lion after me or something like this. I'm in danger, in real danger. And once I have done what I needed to do to get away from the danger, either I got away or I'm done with, then I can just wash out the adrenaline out of my system and then just go back to what I was doing. But what we don't realize is that in this modern world, there are no lions. And the only lions are in our head. I sometimes use the metaphor of the paper tiger. It's an image that we see.
There are no virtual lions. Now they are putting a lot of virtual.
We have virtual lions, yes.
Virtual
But those lions, just like I said earlier, the monsters have no teeth.
Yeah, this monster, we can design it the way we want it.
And, of course, that doesn't apply to 100% of situations. I would not say, oh, it's just my imagination if I'm walking down the dark alley and there's a couple big guys walking after me, Or if, I see a truck driving down the street and coming at me, I'm going to just run and step aside. Yes, there are some physical, dangerous situations that need to be dealt with. If I'm drowning, I want to do everything I can to save myself and so on. But that's only a very, very small percentage. I can't remember the last time I was in physical danger of something. Mostly the dangers are mental ones. We have to learn that, okay, I have this fear which comes from an image I just created in my mind. Now, the fear is there, I cannot deny it. Let's just have it go through, acknowledge it for what it is. We can even thank it for being there. Okay, thank you for notifying me that I need to pay attention to something. I need to pay attention to doing a good job so that I don't get fired. I need to pay attention to be nice to my partner so that my relationship doesn't go sour. I need to pay attention to how I treat myself so that I don't get sick or depressed or stressed. So yes, we can thank our emotions for being there as like a data point. Here I'm going back to my engineering roots.
Yes, yes, that's right. It is very interesting to keep talking to you about emotions, and sometimes, even though we live and it's part of our very human existence, we don't really stop to think about our emotions. We don't stop to think how we can have a better experience with them.
I agree with this. We have this gut response that it's not even a response, it's a reaction. I feel bad, move away from it. I feel good, I want more of it. I've always loved this quote that's been attributed to Viktor Frankl. I'm not sure if he actually said it, but I love it anyhow. Viktor Frankl is the one who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and this was about his experience in the concentration camps in Germany. And he said, or somebody said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies our choice. And so we don't have to respond automatically. We can take even a fraction of a second to pause and notice what's happening and to go, oh, I'm feeling something right now. What is it? And what do I really want to do in response to it? And the response could be exactly the same as if we had not made the pause, but it will have been by choice rather than as an automatic response.
I know you are a very busy person. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but
Thanks.
Are you ready for the hot couch round?
All right.
Yeah, all right.
Bracing myself.
Yes, there is a set of questions that I am going to ask Dr. Fabrice, and he will answer as if he was sitting in a hot couch.
All right.
Yeah. What is a daily habit that you believe contributes to our emotional success?
I would say in one word, it would be mindfulness. To flesh this out a little bit, one very, very, very simple technique which piggybacks on what I was saying earlier is the stop technique. You probably know it, STOP, where S stands for stop, T for take a breath, which doesn't take very long, O stands for observe, look at what the situation is and your internal weather, and P proceed, so after you've made the stop, you continue with full knowledge of what the situation is. That's a very quick mindfulness exercise.
Okay. Wow, that's nice. What is an online resource that is been valuable to you or your clients in difficult moments?
Well, I'd like to give in a little bit of a plug for the podcast I'm doing with David Burns. Dr. David Burns has a website called feelinggood.com, and it has resources both for clients and for therapists. So I would recommend people go visit that website. It's chock full of interesting things. Again, feelinggood.com.
Okay, excellent. And of course the podcast. Feeling
Yeah,
Good podcast.
and the podcast is part of the website, so you can
Of the
find it
website.
there, yes.
Okay. What is your favorite related book?
My all-time favorite book, which I always use, is called Loving What Is. This book was written 15 years ago by somebody named Byron Katie. She has a very radical approach that really takes what's happening to us, drills down into what is true and what is it that we are interpreting, what's our mental filtering. So that would be the book I would recommend, Loving What Is.
Loving What Is. Okay. What one tip would you give to someone who is thinking about starting their own healing journey?
different people have different inclinations. Of course, I'm a therapist, you're a therapist. We do recommend people consider therapy, but it's not for everyone. And other things that I would recommend would be more spiritually based. I often recommend people take a meditation course, a mindfulness meditation. There's a lot of 8-week trainings that are available here and there, very easy to find. Generally to move their body. If I were to tell you that there's a medication that has been discovered for depression that works better than SSRIs, than other antidepressants, doesn't have any side effects, is over the counter, in fact doesn't cost hardly anything. Doesn't help with depression, but it helps with a lot of other things. Would you take it? Most people would say, well, yes, of course. What is it? And they say, well, it's exercise.
Oh, wow.
Get yourself out there, walk in nature, go bicycling, join a gym, go swimming at the pool. So that's definitely another recommendation I would give people.
Yes, that's a very good one. Thank you. Imagine, Dr. Fabrice, that you were only with $200 in your laptop. What is the first step you will take towards starting your healing journey?
I don't have a ready-made answer for this, but for me, so if I were to get into that mode, one thing I know is that if you go to YouTube, you can search for just about anything and you'll find at least one person who has thought about it and created a video that responds to your question. So that's where I would start. And the advantage of this is if it is a therapist or a trainer or a coach, you get to experience them as a person. And you can decide, this is somebody that I might enjoy working with. Beyond that, the internet is full of other resources that are often either free or very cheap. The advantage of the internet is that, let's say I want to, when I do therapy one-on-one with clients, it's fairly expensive and not everyone is able to afford this, or not everyone has health insurance that will reimburse it. And so let's say I wanted to give the option to a larger number of people to receive the coaching and the tools that I have to deliver. I might make available a small course online. I can make it really cheap because if I have 100 people who take it, it's going to reimburse my expenses. So it doesn't cost as much for people to do this online than it does one-on-one.
That's a good idea.
So that's where I would go if I had limited resources and access to the internet.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Dr. Fabrice, explain to us or tell us a little more about your practice. I know you are located in the Silicon Valley.
Yes, my office is in Redwood City. Like I said, I have a nice view of the marina from the window, and it's quite a peaceful place. When people come into my practice, I always give them a little bit of a warning, and I said, the way I do therapy is slightly different than a lot of other people. Some people come to me, they've done therapy before, and what they're used to is they go see someone and they talk about their problems, they get things off their chest. Sure enough, it feels good to be listened to. You will feel like, I've been able to talk openly with this person and I feel relieved. But there's a little bit of a problem with that, because they come back the next week and they still feel just as bad. And they get their problems off their chest and they feel better for an hour and they go back home and the cycle continues. So what I say to my clients is we can do some of that because I need to hear your story, I need to understand where you're coming from, but at some point we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to deal with the things that are stressing you out. And that requires some work. It's not a walk in the park. I would completely understand if you felt like this is too much at this time in my life. I ask them to do some homework in between sessions. A session is 15 minutes often. Sometimes I have extended sessions, but it's still a short time. They still have a lot of hours in the week where they don't see me. So they need to continue the work with you together in their life. And I really ask them if they are willing to commit to this. A lot of people say yes. And some people say, I just have too much on my plate and I don't know if I could. Then I let those people go, because one thing that I found is that the people who do practice during the week are the ones who get better. And that's really what I'm about when I work with people. I want them to get better in their life and to feel happier. It might be more lucrative for me to milk it for as long as I can and have them coming back week after week for years on end, but I don't think that's necessary, and I discourage people from doing that. If they want to do that, I have a number of colleagues who would be quite happy to work in that fashion.
Yeah, that's very nice, because it's true. Is when you go to therapy, sometimes you expect to be listened to, but it's a surprise sometimes when we start working, like you say, rolling up the sleeves and start working, and the client say, no, I just want to be listened.
Yeah.
So yes, that's right. I am so appreciative that you offer that, because we need more than that. We need more psychologists like you in the Bay Area.
Oh, thank you.
We need to work, really. I am a huge advocate for working in therapy.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're saying this, because people often have a misinformed impression of what therapy is.
That's right. And for me, is the more people I get to the point, something you say in your website is to the point of wholeness and authenticity, the more people who get to there, the more people spread the word, and we never run out of clients. We don't need to hold you for many sessions just to listen to you. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
right.
I
want to work myself out of a job. That's what I want to do.
Yes. We want to accomplish also like they accomplish. Yeah. It has been so nice talking to you. Thank you, Doctor, for putting your time into this, and especially to be the first one, to be the brave one to start this interview rounds of this podcast.
You didn't tell me until today.
That's right. Well, you're right. I tricked you into it. Yeah, that's right. We have some more scheduled. We have at least 6-7 more scheduled, but it is really an honor that you are going to, in Mexico, I don't know in the United States, but we say that to do the little kick my butt to start this process.
Yes.
This podcast. It's something like that I can imagine in the United States too.
Yeah, now you're committed, Now that you've done this recording, you're going to have to put it online.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we will listen from you. Or we will put all your notes and whatever in your website, so for people to find you when they need somebody to really work with.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Join us for the next podcast of Emotions in Harmony. We hope you have more tools to put what you have learned here into practice. Visit carmenroman.net, where you can be in touch with Dr. Roman.